October 15th, 1974. Muhammad Ali walked onto The Tonight Show to promote the biggest fight of his career. Johnny Carson asked him one simple question about going to Africa. What happened next wasn't about boxing at all. For 20 minutes, Ali stopped being the greatest and became something America had never seen on television before. A black man telling the complete, unfiltered truth about what it meant to be Muhammad Ali in 1974 America. And Johnny Carson, instead of cutting to commercial or making a joke, did something that would define his legacy. He listened. The studio was electric that Tuesday night. Muhammad Ali, 32 years old, preparing to fight George Foreman in Zaire, entered with his trademark swagger, shadowboxing, declaring himself the greatest before his suit jacket even came off. The audience roared. This was the Ali they'd come to see, confident, charismatic, larger than life. Johnny greeted him with his characteristic smile, ready for what everyone expected, the usual Ali show. Poems, predictions, playful banter, great television. "Muhammad Ali," Johnny began, settling into his chair, "you're about to fight George Foreman in what everyone's calling the Rumble in the Jungle. Are you worried at all about fighting a man who's younger, stronger, and has knocked out every opponent he's faced?" Ali leaned back, grinning. "Worried? Johnny, I'm so confident I've already written the poem about how I'm going to win. You want to hear it?" "Of course," Johnny replied, bracing for vintage Ali. Ali launched into one of his famous rhyming predictions. The audience ate it up. For the first 10 minutes, everything went exactly as scripted. Ali was electric. Johnny was the perfect straight man. America was being entertained. But then Johnny asked a question that seemed innocent enough. "Muhammad, you're going to Africa to fight. What does it mean to you as a black American to be fighting on African soil?" It should have been a softball, an easy setup for Ali to talk about the significance of the location, maybe throw in another poem. But Ali didn't answer right away. His smile faded. He sat back in his chair and went quiet, something Muhammad Ali never did. The studio audience, used to Ali's constant energy, went still. Johnny, sensing something shifting, waited. "Johnny," Ali finally said, his voice different now, softer, more deliberate. "Can I tell you something real?" "Of course," Johnny replied, leaning forward. "I'm scared." The audience murmured. Muhammad Ali, the man who'd declared himself the greatest, who'd never shown public fear or doubt, had just admitted to being scared on national television. "I'm not scared of George Foreman," Ali clarified quickly. "I'm not scared of any man in the ring, but I'm scared of what's happening in this country. I'm scared of what my children are going to face. I'm scared that all the fighting I'm doing, not just in the ring, but for my people, might not be enough." Johnny's expression showed genuine surprise. This wasn't the Al audiences we're used to. This was something raw, unfiltered, real. "What do you mean?" Johnny asked gently. "Before we go deeper into what Ali said next, if you're here because you remember when television wasn't afraid of real conversations, when Johnny Carson could sit across from Muhammad Ali and let truth happen, subscribe to Johnny Carson Legacy Stories. We're uncovering the moments when Johnny stopped entertaining and started changing lives. Hit that bell so you never miss these powerful stories." Ali took a breath. Then he started talking in a way he never had before on national television. "Johnny, when I go to Africa to fight, I'm going to a place where black people are in charge, where black people run the government, own the businesses, make the decisions. Do you know how rare that is for someone like me to experience?" He leaned forward, his words coming faster now. "In America, I'm Muhammad Ali, heavyweight champion of the world. I've got money, fame, recognition. But you know what? I still can't go into certain restaurants in certain parts of this country. I still get called names. My children still have to hear people say terrible things about their father because I refuse to go to Vietnam." The studio went completely silent. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was truth, unvarnished and uncomfortable. What Johnny Carson did next is why he's considered one of the greatest interviewers in television history. He didn't try to lighten the mood, didn't crack a joke, didn't steer the conversation back to boxing. He just said 3 words. "Tell me more." Those 3 words opened a floodgate. For the next 20 minutes, Muhammad Ali spoke more honestly about race, identity, and sacrifice than he had in any previous public appearance. And America, All 20 million viewers watched it happen live. Ali talked about being Cassius Clay, the young Olympic champion who won gold for his country, then came home to Louisville and was refused service at a whites-only restaurant. "People ask me why I changed my name," Ali said. "They want to know why Cassius Clay wasn't good enough. But Cassius Clay was a slave name, Johnny. It was the name of a white man who owned my ancestors. Muhammad Ali is my name. It's who I choose to be, not who someone else decided I should be." He talked about throwing his Olympic gold medal into the Ohio River, not as a theatrical gesture, but as a moment of profound disillusionment with a country that celebrated him as a champion, but treated him as less than human. Then Ali talked about Vietnam, about the decision that cost him everything. "They wanted me to go to Vietnam and kill people I had no quarrel with," Ali explained, his voice growing emotional. "They wanted me to fight for freedom in another country when I didn't have complete freedom in my own country. So I said no. And it cost me everything I'd worked for." His voice cracked slightly. "But you know what, Johnny? I don't regret it. Because some things are more important than boxing. Some things are more important than being famous or rich or popular. Some things you have to stand up for, even when it costs you everything." The studio audience, which had come expecting poems and predictions, was now witnessing something profound. Some people were crying, others were nodding, some looked uncomfortable, confronted with truths they'd never heard expressed so directly on television. Johnny never interrupted. He asked clarifying questions. He gave Ali space to speak without trying to manage or minimize what he was saying. "Muhammad," Johnny said at one point, "a lot of people watching don't understand the choices you've made. They see you as controversial, even divisive. What would you say to them?" Ali looked directly into the camera. "I'd say that being liked by everyone was never my goal. My goal was to be true to who I am and what I believe. My goal was to show young black children that they don't have to accept what society tells them they are. They can be whatever they choose to be." He paused, then continued with passion. "I'm going to Africa to fight George Foreman, but that's not the real fight. The real fight is here in America, trying to make this country live up to its promises. The real fight is showing people that someone who looks like me, who believes what I believe, who stands for what I stand for, can still be the greatest." The weight of what was happening began to dawn on everyone in the studio. This wasn't just an interview anymore. This was history. After 20 minutes of raw, honest conversation, Ali seemed to realize how much he'd revealed. He looked at Johnny and said, "Man, I came here to promote a fight and instead I'm getting all serious. Your viewers probably want to change the channel." But Johnny shook his head. "Muhammad, this is the most important interview I've done in a long time. This is you being real, being honest, being more than just a boxer. This is what television should be." The audience erupted in applause, not the excited cheering they'd given Ali when he first appeared, but something deeper, more respectful. They were applauding not for the greatest, but for the man behind that title. Ali, clearly moved, wiped his eyes. "You got me all emotional, Johnny. This wasn't supposed to happen." "Sometimes," Johnny replied, "the best moments aren't supposed to happen. They just do." If you're feeling the power of what just happened between these two men, one black, one white, both trying to understand each other in a divided America, you're exactly where we want you. That's what Johnny Carson Legacy Stories is about. Showing you the moments when Johnny stopped being a host and became a bridge. Subscribe now and join thousands who are rediscovering why Johnny wasn't just the king of late night. He was the man who made space for truth. For the final few minutes of the interview, Ali returned to his characteristic showmanship. He made predictions about the Foreman fight. He entertained the audience with his wit. But something had fundamentally changed. Everyone watching now understood that behind the bravado and the poems and the declarations of greatness was a man fighting battles much larger than any boxing ring could contain. As the interview ended, Johnny stood and shook Ali's hand. "Muhammad, thank you for being honest with us tonight. I think you taught us all something important." "What's that?" Ali asked. "That being the greatest isn't just about winning fights," Johnny said. "It's about having the courage to stand for something, even when it costs you everything." Ali nodded, visibly emotional. "Thank you for letting me be real, Johnny. Not everyone does." The response to the interview was immediate and divided. Some viewers called NBC to complain. They'd wanted entertainment, not discussions about race and protest. They accused Johnny of letting Ali politicize the show, but many more called to thank him. Letters poured in from black viewers who said they'd never heard their experiences articulated so clearly on mainstream television. White viewers wrote about having their eyes opened to perspectives they'd never considered. One letter from a black schoolteacher in Mississippi said, "I watched Muhammad Ali on your show last night with my students. For the first time, they saw a black man speak his complete truth on national television without apology. You gave them something more valuable than entertainment. You gave them dignity." Television critics called it a masterclass in interviewing. Journalism professors began using the footage to teach students about the power of asking, "Tell me more," and then listening. But the interview did something bigger than win awards or change curriculum. It showed America that entertainment platforms could facilitate serious conversations about social justice without losing their audience. It proved that people were ready for more than just laughs. They were ready for truth. 3 weeks later, Muhammad Ali defeated George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. He used his famous rope-a-dope strategy to tire out the younger, stronger fighter before knocking him out in the 8th round. It was one of the greatest upsets in boxing history. But for those who'd watched Ali's Tonight Show appearance, the victory meant something more than just a boxing triumph. It represented Ali backing up everything he'd said to Johnny, that he was the greatest, not just because of his skills, but because of his willingness to fight for what he believed in, regardless of the cost. Years later, after Ali had retired from boxing and was dealing with Parkinson's disease, he and Johnny had a reunion on The Tonight Show. When Johnny brought up that October 1974 interview, Ali smiled, his movement slower now, his voice quieter, but his spirit still unmistakable. "You know, Johnny," Ali said, "I've done thousands of interviews in my life, but that night on your show was one of the few times I felt like I could really say what I was thinking and feeling. You didn't try to make me into a character or a controversy, you just let me be me." Johnny, visibly moved, replied, "Muhammad, you taught me something that night. You taught me that the best interviews happen when you stop trying to entertain and start trying to understand." That October 1974 interview has been cited by cultural historians as one of the most important televised conversations about race in American history. It demonstrated that entertainment platforms didn't have to choose between being relevant and being popular. They could be both. The interview influenced how future talk show hosts approached controversial figures. It showed that giving people space to be authentic and vulnerable could create more powerful television than any scripted entertainment. Sports journalists point to the interview as a turning point in how athletes discussed social issues. Ali's willingness to be vulnerable and honest and the positive response it received paved the way for future generations of athletes to use their platforms for activism. Muhammad Ali and Johnny Carson represented two very different worlds. Ali, the controversial black athlete who challenged American social norms, who'd sacrificed his career for his beliefs, who'd been called un-American for refusing to fight in Vietnam. Carson, the white Nebraskan who represented mainstream entertainment, who'd built a career on making America laugh, who'd carefully avoided controversial topics for years. But on that October night in 1974, they found common ground in honesty, vulnerability, and mutual respect. Ali showed America that being the greatest meant more than winning fights. It meant having the courage to be honest about fear, doubt, and struggles that no amount of fame or success could erase. And Johnny showed that great television wasn't always about getting laughs or creating viral moments. Sometimes it was about creating space for truth, even when that truth was uncomfortable or controversial. What made that interview so powerful wasn't just what Ali said. It was what Johnny didn't say. He didn't interrupt. He didn't redirect. He didn't try to balance Ali's perspective with opposing views. He just listened, really listened, and gave Ali the space to speak his complete truth. In doing so, Johnny Carson did something revolutionary. He treated Muhammad Ali not as a controversial athlete or a polarizing figure, but as a human being with a story worth hearing in full. The interview's legacy extends far beyond that one night. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem in 2016, sports commentators referenced Ali's Tonight Show appearance as a precedent for athletes using their platform for activism. When LeBron James spoke out about police brutality, he cited Muhammad Ali as an inspiration, and specifically mentioned Ali's willingness to speak honestly about race on shows like The Tonight Show. The interview taught a generation of journalists that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is ask a simple question and then get out of the way. It taught athletes that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. And it taught America that conversations about race don't have to end in argument. Sometimes, if you create the right space, they can end in understanding. Johnny Carson died in 2005. Muhammad Ali died in 2016. But what they created together on that October night in 1974 still resonates. It reminds us that real conversation requires courage, the courage to ask hard questions and the courage to answer them honestly. It reminds us that entertainment platforms have the power to do more than entertain. They can educate, they can bridge divides, they can change minds. And it reminds us that sometimes the most important moments aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones we allow to happen when we stop performing and start being real. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of a time when television could bring people together instead of driving them apart, do something about it. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Start a conversation about what Muhammad Ali said and why it still matters. And subscribe to Johnny Carson Legacy Stories for more untold moments that reveal the power of real conversation. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling us about a time when someone's honesty changed your perspective, and ring that notification bell so you never miss these stories. Because in the end, we're all just trying to understand each other. And sometimes, all it takes is one person brave enough to speak their truth, and one person wise enough to listen. Johnny Carson and Muhammad Ali showed us how it's done. On October 15, 1974, they stopped entertaining America and started changing it.